Howdy, y'all. It's time to say howdy to your favorite podcaster. Okay, I'm going to drop the country accent now. I'm wearing a Western-themed outfit today because I don't believe in waiting until Halloween to actually dress up for the occasion. I tend to celebrate the entire week, but nevertheless, howdy, y'all. Welcome to another exciting episode of Robbie Shorter's The Thing About, where you get the routine by now. In any case, we're going to dive right into today's episode, and it is going to be yet another movie review about a movie I saw several months ago. I saw the trailer for this movie, and I was already very not optimistic about how it was going to pan out. The trailer alone was very ominous. But nevertheless, I spent $17 because this was before I bothered to get an AMC Stubs Premiere Plus, whatever the fuck that's called, Movie Pass. I'm something of a cinephile. But yeah, I didn't bother to get the pass yet, so I paid full price, $17, to see this movie. And it is quite possibly one of the worst, actually no, I take that back. It's not quite possibly, it is, in fact, the worst movie I have seen this year. And quite possibly, it may very well be the worst movie I've seen this decade. And that movie is Madam Web. I mean, God in heaven, you have got to be kidding me. This is just, yeah. So let's just go back a little bit. Who exactly is Madam Web? Well, I'm glad you asked. Madam Web is a character from the Spider-Man universe, and she is depicted in the comic books and in some of the video games that came out back in the late or the early 2010s. She is depicted as an elderly, blind woman who is bound to a life support chair because of a very degenerative disease she has, so being bound to this chair helps keep her alive. The chair was created by her husband, and he just so happened to have a fascination with spiders, I guess, because it looks like a web. The back of the chair looks like a spider web. But in any case, to make up for the fact that she is blind, paralyzed, and, can't really survive long without her chair, she is clairvoyant. She has the ability to see into the future, and by doing so, she is able to help Spider-Man alter the future for the better. So, yeah, she's very much a support character in the Spider-Man universe, a very powerful support character, but a support character nonetheless. So let's flash forward to February of this year. We get a movie that is very, very, very loosely based on that concept of Madam Web, starring the chick from 50 Shades of Grey, Dakota Johnson. And yeah, this movie was the worst I've seen this year. But before I get into detail as far as why, let me just preface something to you guys. I'm going to give you a little history lesson. So back in the 90s, back in the late 90s, Marvel actually wasn't doing so well as far as their IPs and as far as actually, making money. They were losing a lot of money because comic books were dying and their movies were, especially in the Fox cinematic universe, left a lot to be desired. So Marvel was losing money. So they decided, hey, we're just going to start selling off a lot of our IPs. And one of those IPs, of course, was the Spider-Man franchise. So here comes Sony. Yes, that company, Sony, the ones who make all the audio equipment, the ones responsible for the PlayStation 5 and 4 and, all the other ones. They jump in, they hop on the opportunity to pretty much buy up a lot of Marvel's IPs, which is why we have certain movies that we have, especially Fox Marvel movies. But yeah, so they technically owned Spider-Man for many, many years. Eventually, I'd say once we got to around 2016, 2017, a deal was made between Disney, because back in 2012, I believe, Disney ended up buying out. It may have been 2014, actually, but in any case, early 2010s, Marvel gets bought out by Big Daddy Disney, And Marvel Studios comes to an agreement with Sony saying, hey, we'd like to start making Spider-Man movies again now that we don't suck as much ass anymore. Would you be willing to make a deal with us so we can both technically own the Spider-Man series, but we'll just, we'll share it. And Sony was agreeable to this for the most part, and long behold, this is how we were able to get the Tom Holland MCU version of Spider-Man. So Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and of course the piece de resistance, that is Spider-Man No Way Home, that came out, I believe, in December of 2022, 2021, one of those years. So yeah, now here's the thing. With this agreement that Sony has under this contract, Sony is legally obligated to crank out a certain number of Spider-Man spin-off movies every couple of years, or they risk losing the IP and it goes back to Marvel, which quite frankly would be one of the best things to happen to the human race if that did, because if you all are not aware, there is a world of difference between Sony Marvel and Disney Marvel. You want Disney Marvel. You don't really want Sony Marvel. Now, let me just say this. Sony has done some pretty great things as far as with the Spider-Man IP. They are the ones responsible for giving us the animated Spider-Man series, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and then at some point in the future, hopefully before I hit Social Security eligibility age, they'll give us Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, the Miles Morales flavor of the Spider-Man character. And that has been a phenomenal series, and I've enjoyed it. They're also the same ones responsible for giving us Venom. So we have Venom. We had Venom Let There Be Carnage with Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson, I believe. And then most recently, it just came out a couple days ago, as of the time of this recording, we have Venom The Last Dance, which is going to serve as the last dance for the Venom saga, or for Sony's telling of Venom. So that's where we are now. And they are also responsible for some not so good movies that have come out. Morbius, don't bother going to watch that. I can't believe they actually thought it would be cool to re-release that movie because I guess trolling Morbius, all the TikTokers and the Instagrammers and the Snapchatters or whatnot tore this movie to shreds, and it became what the kids call a meme on social media. Sony thought it would be a great idea to re-release this movie, and it did even worse than it did on its initial run. So, yeah. And Sony is also responsible for giving us the movie that I am going to talk about today, which is Madam Web. No, I am not going to stop using that button. It's fucking awesome. I finally figured out how to use that, and I will be using that, especially in this episode. So, let me just give you the rundown about how this movie operates. The short answer is horribly, and makes me want to gouge my fucking eyes out with a teaspoon, but I'll give you a bit more context. So, in this movie, Madam Web, starring Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, and Mike Epps is featured in it. I don't know why they thought he was going to be a hard hitter to get butts and seats, but alas, here we are. I'm not going to give you a play-by-play of how the movie is from scene to scene to scene to scene. If you want to do that, you can just hop on YouTube for all that, but here's basically the gist of it. We get Cassandra Webb, who is an orphan. Her mother was killed in the Amazon when she was researching spiders right before she died. And she gets killed by this dude. Her bodyguard decides to betray her because he actually wants to find the spider that Constance, that's Madam Webb's mom's name, Constance Webb. She's trying to find this very rare spider that could potentially cure all litany of diseases and cancers and whatnot. Ezekiel Sims, that's the name of the antagonist in this movie. He's not about that. He just wants the spider for himself and to get the powers. This takes place in 1973, okay? So in 1973, they're in the Amazon researching spiders right before Constance bites the dust. After she's killed by Ezekiel, he takes the spider for himself and does God knows what for the next 30 years. 30 years later, in 2003, and yes, this movie is supposed to take place in the early 2000s, so prepare yourself for a lot of Britney Spears references and, yeah, hit or miss music from that era. But in any case, we fast forward to 2003 after Constance gives birth to. That scene was so fucking ridiculous. But long story short, Constance gives birth to Cassandra in the Amazon, surrounded in a pool of water, surrounded by some spider people. We can't call them the spider men because reasons. But in any case, after Constance gives birth to Cassandra, somehow, some way, she finds her little ass to New York City and she lives there for the next 30 plus years. We fast forward to 2003. Of course, Constance is dead. She's an orphan. Cassandra is. She grows up and becomes a paramedic in New York City, you know, fighting to save people's lives and save people from catastrophe. And while she's out on a call, her partner, who just so happens to be named Ben Parker, hinty hinty, winky winky, that's Spider-Man's or Peter Parker's uncle. The two of them they're co-workers together. They respond to an incident, a car crash, something of that nature. Cassandra is able, or Cassie, I'm going to try to call her Cassie because Cassandra's starting to prove to be a mouthful for me. Cassie is able to help the guy get out of the car, but not before she gets trapped in the car. The car falls off the bridge and into the water, and she plummets, presumably to her death. But I guess before that happens, it activates her clairvoyant abilities. And I guess the explanation for that is, well, I have to go back even more. So when I told you that her mom, Constance Webb, was in a pool of water as she gave birth to this baby. She was very much pregnant with Cassie during this whole researching spiders shit in the Amazon in 1973. She was already like 9 months pregnant with her. One of the spider dudes, spider guys, they put one of the elusive spiders on Constance. The spider bites Constance, and then in doing so, it transfers some of its power into her, and then by doing that, it transfers some of its power into the unborn baby being Cassie Webb. Fast forward 30 years after Cassie gets into that accident while she's on the job and presumably plummeting to her death. Apparently, she hits her head and it activates her clairvoyant abilities because now she can start seeing the future. She's seeing shit that hasn't even happened yet. So, yeah, after that happens, shenanigans ensue, blah, 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 blah. She keeps having these visions of three girls or whatnot, who she happened to come across earlier in the movie as she was responding to another incident. And these three girls were pretty much the main reason why I think a lot of people made the decision to go see this movie, is because they thought they were going to get the Spider Women. That's what I thought too for about 10 seconds. And then I realized this movie is not going to go in that direction. That would be far too profitable for them. So they didn't. They did not do that. What happens is instead, after Cassandra gets her clairvoyant abilities and she sees these three girls getting murdered on the subway train over and over again, but then that turns out to be just another clairvoyant premonition and she can actually prevent that from happening. She decides to scoop them all up, tell them to get the hell off the train, and they go on an adventure together to elude Ezekiel Sims, because Ezekiel, remember, the dude that was in the Amazon researching spiders right before her mom died, he got bit by the spider and he got spider abilities, but we can't call him Spider-Man. Instead, he's just the dude with spider-like abilities wearing a not Spider-Man suit. Yeah, for fuck's sake. But in any case, Ezekiel is having a nightmare every freaking day since he did the deed, killed all those people, including Cassandra's mom, and took the spider. He's been plagued with a nightmare that keeps repeating itself over and over again, and it's of him being murdered, being kicked out of a fucking window and plummeting to his death by the three spider women. The three spider women, who just so happen to be their identities, are the three women that Cassie has come across throughout the movie. You've got the rich, preppy, ungrateful black girl that goes to some fancy schmancy private school. You've got Julia, I think her name is Julia Cornwall. That's Sydney Sweeney's character. She's the socially awkward, nerdy girl. And then you have Anya. I don't know the name of the actress that portrays her, forgive me. But she's basically the rebellious bitch, I guess. Well, her and the preppy girl are kind of the rebellious bitches. And then Sydney Sweeney's character, Julia Cornwall, is the socially awkward, nerdy girl who's just kind of happy to be there, but at the same time doesn't really want to be there because it's a step out of her comfort zone. They're cliches. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's that's my first problem with this movie, is that everything is so cliche. Yeah. Then we have Dakota Johnson's character herself, Cassie. Cassie is pretty much the definition of a hero that never really wanted to be a hero, because as soon as shit starts to pop off and she has to, she assumes responsibility of protecting these three girls from being murdered by Ezekiel Sims, because his rationale is, well, if these three girls are going to end up killing him as the Spider Women in the future, then he needs to kill them now so that way they can't kill him in the future. I don't know. It's some weird bullshit perverted version of Terminator, basically. Like, you're going to kill me one day, so I'm going to kill you today before you have a chance to kill me in the future. But yeah. Now, here's the thing about Ezekiel Sims, or I think I forget the name of the actor. I don't want to mispronounce it. I think it's Rahir Tahim, something along those lines. I'm not sure what kind of acting chops this guy has, but his character really fucking sucks in this movie. If you just look at the way listen to the way he speaks and then look at his mouth, you'll see that you will not be able to look at his mouth because he always has it blocked during certain scenes. And what happens is, I know it's common for people to use, it's basically dubbing. It's called ADR, and there are certain scenes where it's not really feasible for an actor to talk, especially during really physically intensive scenes. So they end up dubbing and adding in, voice, post scene or whatnot, or whatever the fancy schmancy terminology for that is. But the ADR in this movie is so horrible that it's almost laughable. Like, the man is talking. We know that he's supposed to be talking to another human being and having a conversation, but his mouth is blocked because his mouth isn't actually matching up with the words he is saying on screen. And it's fucking annoying. So yeah, for a multi-billion-dollar company like Sony, I don't really expect that to have been an issue, yet nevertheless, here we are. Also, Ezekiel is really bad at being a bad guy. And here's another thing about his character. How the fuck could he possibly have determined that these three specific girls are going to be the ones to, take him out in some unforeseen future? I understand that he has dreams, which is basically a future premonition of how he's going to die at the hands of these three spider women. But in his dream, in his nightmare, they're wearing their full Spider Girl getup and whatnot. So, yeah, you can see their faces, but at the same time, you can't really see their faces. So how the fuck is Ezekiel, with the help of some unnamed assistant lady in his multi-million-dollar apartment condo, whatever the fuck, in New York City that somehow he's able to afford, how the fuck is he able to figure out what these girls look like based off a dream that he had where he couldn't even really see their faces? that never really gets explained in the movie. You just kind of have to go with it. Apparently, to go back a little bit, Ezekiel had sex with some lady that turned out to be working for the NSA, and then he poisons her shortly thereafter, but he promises to let her go and let her live if she gives him the code to all her secret, top secret, super agent NSA technology shit, which she does, and he kills her anyway, and he's like, oh, well, it's a very good thing you didn't know today was the day you were going to die. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're real fucking hilarious, pal. But yeah, he does that. Apparently, the NSA has the technology to do, I guess, suspect identification based off your fucking dreams. So, the movie just expects you to fucking roll with it. So I did. I was cringing the whole fucking time and wanted to, staple my nipples to my forehead because I thought that would be more amusing than watching this movie. But nevertheless, I persisted. So, we fast forward some more. Cassie is really bad at being a human being in this movie. She comes across as very stiff, very animatronic, very socially awkward. She goes to a birthday shower, not a birthday shower, a baby shower. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, folks. Old man brain. She goes to a baby shower for the baby that will presumably be named Peter, specifically Peter Parker. But yeah, she goes to his baby shower and she's about as, she's about as charming as having toenails jammed underneath your, she's about as charming as having nails jammed underneath your toenails. She goes in and she starts talking about, oh yeah, my mom died during childbirth, and the rate of child mortality, or the rate of your child fucking dying during childbirth, is like statistically low as compared to eons ago. She's saying the sort of shit that you probably wouldn't say at a baby shower. If I'm at a baby shower, I don't think I'm going to talk about the statistical likelihood of you fucking dying while going into labor. I'm not going to talk about stillborns and whatnot. I'm probably going to try to keep the conversation light, read the room a little bit. Cassie does a horrible fucking job of that because this script, or whoever the fuck wrote it, is a moron. But yeah, after that pops off, she responds to another call. Her boss, Mike Epps' character, he gets killed. But before he gets killed, Cassie has a premonition that he's going to get, crashed into by another car. She tries to warn him. He doesn't listen. He just tells her to focus on doing her job, whatever. And then long and behold, oh no, he gets fucking murdered by another car. Woo. Can you tell I'm very enthusiastic about this movie? I really don't want to keep going through the rest of this movie, but I have to, just so you understand how painful this movie can be to watch. At some point in the movie, Cassie thinks it would be she needs to go get some answers about why things are happening the way they are. So she leaves these 3 girls she's in charge of, who, she is technically kidnapping because they never gave her permission to take her with them anywhere, or take them with her anywhere. They sure as shit are, I'm pretty sure they're considered minors in this movie, so, I don't think Cassie bothered to get parental consent to do any of this shit. But yeah, Cassie, I guess, now being technically a kidnapper, is somehow able to get on an airline post 9/11 with no interference at all from law enforcement, local, state, or federal. And she's able to take her happy little ass over to the Amazon, back to where her mom died when she was researching spiders. And she ends up meeting the guy that attempted to save her mom's life. I forget his name, some unforgettable character that was wearing one of those ridiculous fucking, that looks so fucking awful. The costume design for the spider people, I guess, I believe they call themselves the Los Arañas people. But yeah, their costumes look fucking terrible. It looked like something straight out of low budget Party City. But yeah, she meets up with him, and he says that, oh, well, when you accept the responsibility, great power will come. Fuck you. You do not get to do that to Uncle Ben. No. It's with great power comes great responsibility. But of course, Sony just has to be different and has to piss us off. So they say, oh, well, when you accept the responsibility, great power will come. And I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. You've lost me. But nevertheless, I persisted. Eventually, Cassie gets her little happy ass back to the United States and back to New York once again with no interference from law enforcement post 9/11, considering she is technically a kidnapper. And yeah, more shenanigans ensue. Ezekiel eventually catches up with them, tries his hardest to kill them, is unsuccessful because Cassie is starting to master her clairvoyant abilities. And then the movie ends with Cassie defeats Ezekiel because she's able to, I guess, go into the fucking avatar state and spiritually project her spirit into multiple forms so she can save the three girls at the same time, because Ezekiel's like, ha, you can't save all three at the same time because one girl's hanging off one ledge, another girl's hanging off another ledge, the other girl's hanging off another ledge. Cassie's just one person, so I guess she also has the ability to do astral fucking projection. She projects her spirit, and she's able to save the three of them. And if this sounds really fucking ridiculous, that's because it is, and there's really not much context given into it, but nevertheless. So Cassie does that. All it takes for Ezekiel to snap her out of the avatar state is to punch her in the fucking gut, which he does. Shocker, shocker, didn't see that coming. Cassie hits the floor. Ezekiel tries to do away with her, but I guess after some really well-timed clairvoyant moments, I guess, Cassie is able to maneuver Ezekiel right where she wants him to be, and he's like, oh, well, I was, the girls were never your enemy, or the girls were never your future. I was. And I'm like, cool. I guess that's supposed to be your badass moment, huh, Dakota? But in any case, yeah, Ezekiel ends up falling to his death and getting crushed to death by the S from the Pepsi sign, because there is an awful lot of product placement in this fucking movie. It's Mountain Dew and Pepsi, and if it's not Mountain Dew and Pepsi, it's Pepsi and Mountain Dew. So, yeah, there you go. And, yeah, the movie ends with Cassie plummeting into the fucking lake or whatever again. Yeah, she falls in, and I guess that's what leaves her paralyzed. And then these two fucking firecrackers or whatever the fuck, they go into the water, and they just so happen to hit her in the eye, thus blinding her. The girls are able to rescue Cassie from the water, and they perform CPR because, I think 5 or 6 scenes ago, Cassie decided to give them an impromptu fucking CPR class while they're in a hotel hiding out. So, yeah, that was totally not predictable or anything. They do CPR, they resuscitate Cassie. Cassie gets sent to the hospital. She's got bandages over her eyes and whatnot. They're sitting with her, comforting her. And she's like, wow, Ben's really looking forward to being an uncle, because being an uncle is like being a dad without all the responsibilities. And then Cassie fucking chuckles and says, well, that's what he thinks, because she's teasing at the fact that, her brother and Ben's brother and his sister are going to fucking die, so he's going to end up having to assume responsibility for young Peter Parker. So cool, real cool, Cassie. The final scene in the movie is, I guess, Cassie gets a pretty generous disability compensation. Now she's living in a fucking high-rise apartment, bound to a wheelchair and fucking blind, but living the high life, no less. The 3 girls come in to keep her company. They bring some Chinese food and whatnot. And, yeah, Cassie starts to see the future. She sees the 3 Spider Girls, and she also sees herself as Madam Web. Yeah, yeah. And honestly, that was probably the best part of the movie, was probably the end, because, well, one, the movie was fucking ending. Save my soul. I can get the fuck out of there. And two, we actually finally got to see the Spider Women for more than, or for about 40 seconds. If you're going into this movie thinking that you're going to see full powered Madam Web and these three Spider Women, you're not. As I've just so eloquently laid out to you for the past 30 minutes, that's not what you're going to get. What you're going to get is a shitty origin story, a shitty, cliche, poorly acted, stiff, generic origin story about how the lady that got banged on by Christian Grey is now a clairvoyant person in a Spider-Man like-ish universe, but they still can't make direct Spider-Man references. So yeah, bottom line is, folks, don't see this movie. If you absolutely must, wait for it to come out on stream. I gave it a 2 out of 10. I was going to give it a 3, but that whole when you accept responsibility, great power will come, that really pissed me off. That was, ugh, go fuck yourself. But in any case, yeah, I don't. Here's what you could do. If you get really drunk and if you go into this movie under the impression that Cassie Webb is not a human, but she's actually a cyborg from the future that has been sent to the year 2003 to better understand human behavior and what it's like to be, I guess, in a Marvel, not Marvel movie, it actually kind of makes sense, and it's actually kind of fun to watch. Again, you need to have a considerable amount of alcohol in your system, and you need to go into this believing that Dakota Johnson is a fucking cyborg. But if you do that, you could probably give this movie a 5 out of 10. Yeah, the special effects look like something ripped out of the CW. I've seen better special effects, actually, in CW TV shows than this fucking movie, so I don't know where the fucking budget for this movie went. I'm going to assume it went towards all the fucking product placement of Pepsi and Mountain Dew in this goddamn movie, but yeah, didn't quite work for me. Yeah, I genuinely don't have anything nice to say about this movie other than the fact that we got maybe 30 seconds of the Spider Women, and they weren't really even a part of the movie. They were just a premonition, or they were just part of Ezekiel Sims' fucking nightmare. The same bullshit issue we had with Joker, Folie à Deux, where, yeah, you're getting what you think you want, but at the same time, it's not even part of the actual movie or part of the overall story. It's just this weird side thing. I really can't stand when these fucking movies do that. But yeah, that's Madam Web. 2 out of 10. Don't see this movie, but if you must see this movie, wait for it to come out on stream. Get drunk, get some friends over, pretend that Cassie is a cyborg, and then you might actually be able to make this piece of shit work. But let's be honest, you probably still ain't going to be able to make this piece of shit movie work. And then here's another thing. Here's the funny thing about Dakota Johnson. She knew this movie was going to be fucking trash. If you watch the interviews of Madam Web, the interviews that she had with all these different outlets leading up to the release of Madam Web, you can tell that she's not pleased with this movie. As a matter of fact, she actually fired her, I think her talent agency, or she quit, she left, she fired somebody, but whoever her agent is, she fired him because apparently Dakota Johnson was under the impression that she was going to be in a Marvel movie, which she was. However, her talent agency or talent agent representative, whoever the fuck was that failed her, they failed to mention that this was a Sony Marvel movie and not a Disney Marvel movie. Remember, folks, if a recruiter ever comes up to you and says, hey, hey kid, you want to be in a Marvel movie? You need to specify, sure, but is this Sony Marvel or Disney Marvel? You want Disney Marvel, not fucking Sony Marvel. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a generic, shitty fucking Spider-Man spinoff movie that nobody fucking asked for and is complete and total garbage and ought to be shot and left to bleed out and die in the moonlight. Was that too much? Nah, I don't think it was. In any case, folks, I think I've had quite enough for today. I'm just going to let you chew on that. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for letting me get into your ear holes for the for the past 34 plus minutes. And I will catch you in the next exciting episode of Robbie Shorter's The Thing About. And don't you forget now, Election Day is, I don't fucking know, but it's in like a couple days. So get registered to vote if you're not registered already. If you are registered to vote, 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 vote. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye. Madam Web sucks.